Today it's a special day because we have a special speaker, Ted A. Smith from Emory University. So we do have to have some conversation about theology education in crisis. And then we do want to kind of discuss how to kind of engage with kind of new crisis. Okay. Hey, Ted.
Professor Lim, so good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. And it's my honor to have you here as a speaker. So yeah.
And my honor to be here. I'm thrilled to be at Yonsei and so glad to get to be with you.
Yeah. So let us kind of start from one question. So can you let us know about the current situation of American churches?
The current situation of American churches. Oh, yeah, that's a complex question.
That's right.
But I think, there's a simple story that could say that nearly every denomination is experiencing a decline in membership.
That's right.
And it's very important to say that it is not just one wing. It's not just evangelicals. It's not just Catholics. It's not just more liberal or mainline. It is really across the board.
Yeah.
There are some exceptions, which we can talk about if you want to, but we're seeing this general decline.
Yeah.
As part of my analysis, one of the things that I've come to feel quite sure about is that this decline is not captured by classical theories of secularization, like you get with Weber or Durkheim or Marx. It's rather a shift in the institutional structure of people's lives. So it's not secularization, but it's individualization.
Oh, yeah. So you kind of addressed the real issue of kind of American churches, and you are saying that the population of kind of Christians kind of in both Catholic and Protestant are in decline, right? And I think the same thing is happening in South Korea too. I think we are kind of we are confident with the decline of population in Korean churches as well. What's the kind of current situation of theological education North American context?
Seminaries in many ways are tightly tied to the churches. And I think it's important to see those connections. But many theological schools in the United States are experiencing declining enrollment. That true, again, is true across the board.
Yeah.
Episcopal Divinity School, which was a very liberal divinity school, they closed and are now rebooting themselves in a new life. But so too Liberty University, which is an extremely conservative place, they laid off a third of their faculty.
Really?
So, and Gordon Conwell, an evangelical powerhouse, had to sell their campus. And so we're seeing it across the board once again. I think the real reason for this is, again, that institutional mismatch.
Oh, yeah.
The seminaries evolved to train leaders of voluntary associations, leaders of these congregations. But the voluntary association form is under extraordinary pressure now. It's unraveling. And not just in religion, but also in civic organizations, labor unions, political parties. That institutional form is unraveling. And the individualized form is where there's a lot of energy. So I find many of our students are still very curious about God. They have religious questions they want to pursue, but they're not interested in serving as a pastor.
Yeah.
And I think they still come to seminary, but I think there are many more who would come to study theology if they knew that those kind of questions would be prioritized rather than training them to lead a voluntary association.
I think the same thing is happening in South Korea too. So there are, we are kind of losing kind of our students and the enrollments of each seminary and like a university setting, like universities are kind of is less kind of attractive to incoming students. It's really hard to kind of push them to study theology honestly nowadays. I can put this way. Actually, the needs of the populace is kind of diverse nowadays.
Yes.
And then it's no longer binaristic. Therefore, theology education must be kind of transform itself in diverse ways. And then we need to kind of think of a kind of the needs in theology education as a kind of spectrum.
That's right.
Yeah.
It is a spectrum.
Yeah.
And I think another way I think about the theological school,
Mm.
I think about our offerings as a spectrum.
Mm.
I think about the theological school as a kind of hub
Mm.
for Christian learning. And a hub, people can come in from many different directions. They go through in many different directions. So it's not just a gateway that you have to pass through in this one fashion like it has been in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wonder about the spectrum. So when you kind of describe a spectrum, is it kind of spectrum within Christian circle, or is it kind of spectrum beyond the limitation of Christianity? Like there might be kind of some non-Christian who'd be interested in religion, right? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And I think we need different institutions doing different things. Candler is a Christian school of theology. And we do have many different faiths. We have different faiths among our faculty
Sure.
and among our students, but the school itself maintains a Christian identity.
That's right.
And so I think the offerings that we are going to are for the church along the spectrum, or for Christians or people who might be curious about Christianity. There's no belief test at the door, right?
Yes, right.
So for people who are curious about Christianity. But I think other institutions might develop a spectrum for other faith traditions or for multiple faith traditions. And I think that would be good. That would be their calling, and we have ours.
So I think you're emphasizing the significance of contextualization of theological education. We need to meet the needs of people within a specific kind of context,
Yeah,
right?
I think it is a kind of enculturation
Yes, right.
for a changed culture.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Candler, where it is native to the American South.
That's right.
So there, you would think, well, we wouldn't need to enculturate in the American South, but the South has changed.
That's right.
The culture has changed.
Yeah.
And it's changed in so many ways, but especially this movement of individualization and the erosion of the voluntary association. So we have to re-enculturate the theological education to serve these times.
Yeah. Believe it or not, Emory, Candler School of Theology, is one of the top choices for Korean students who are willing to study abroad.
I hope so.
Yeah, at this point, Emory University is kind of one of the top universities for many theological students. But and then not only that, Emory has been attracting many students on a global scale, right?
Yes.
So, what do you think about the incoming students from all of the places?
Yeah, I think that, some of our very best students are from right here at Yonsei.
Thank you.
Incredible students.
Thank you very much.
And I think a core part of the mission of a school like Candler is to create space where all kinds of people can come together, can be challenged, not only by professors who challenge them, but by peers who challenge them, and then thrive. But one of the things that's really key to this vision is that they're not just being critical or deconstructing their past, but there is that moment of critique when you meet someone else, but then they're building
That's right.
things that have life in their contexts. That is really what I love to see. And our graduates do that. They go on to PhDs, they go on to lead congregations, they go on to lead non-government organizations. The leader of the, in South Carolina, the death penalty is unjustly enforced, but there's a pastor there who's leading a whole movement against it, and she's a Candler grad. So they lead in all these ways.
Yeah. You are saying, it seems to me that you are saying that theology needs to be both theoretical and practical.
Yeah, and I do think that is one of Candler's strengths, is that attention to practice. Many of us on the faculty are pastors or have done other community organizing kind of work. And then it's required of all the students, and it's required of the faculty that we teach in the contextual education. So the practical is very important.
Yeah. Ted, I know you have visited South Korea a couple of times already, right?
Yeah, I love it here.
Yeah. So, and then there must be something kind of influential, something insightful to you. So what have you learned from Korean culture or Korean Christianity?
One of my favorite parts of Korean Christianity is the tradition of communal shouted prayer. It is unlike anything else I have experienced around the world.
Okay.
And I find it a powerful giving voice to people's pain, to their lamentations.
That's right.
But what I love is the way in which it is very communal. You're
That's
all
right.
together,
That's right.
but it's also radically individual.
That's right.
Because it is you're alone with God, but you're also with all
That's
these
right.
people.
That's right.
And that way of being alone with God, but still part of a community, it's very unique. It's very special. And I love it.
Yeah. So I believe that nowadays theological education in Christ on a global scale. Yeah. So North America is struggling. So is Korean Christianity. And everywhere we can see the growing of the churches, right, nowadays. And then we need to kind of take some actions in the name of solidarity. So while visiting different places on a global scale, so what do you think about the kind of the new vision for the future of Christianity?
I think the real need that we have is for spaces for conversations around just those questions that are then made possible by academic careers, perhaps, or church careers, but not necessarily in service of those careers. Because when it has to be in service of the career, when we have to generate a book that gets someone tenure or something, it distorts the process.
This is right.
And it makes the conversations less radical than they need to be. So I think what we need are open-ended conversations where we don't have to produce something that will be valued by the powers that be.
That's right. Yeah.
And then we could imagine the next thing together.
Whenever I can talk to you, I believe you are kind of theologian who is one of the most creative scholar, right?
Well, thank you.
Yeah. And then I believe that creativity is very important, even theological education.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then I believe kind of this kind of encounter between Western and non-Western countries make us more imaginative, right?
Yeah.
So, could you just end your kind of this kind of interview by kind of emphasizing the significance of creativity in theology education in today's kind of context?
I wouldn't want to make a fetish of creativity and say that it is good in itself. But I do think, I think that the essence of human life is responding to God.
That's right.
So that God comes to us in love, comes to work for justice, to work for the redemption of the world.
That's right.
And already does that. But then does it in a way that invites a response from us.
That's right.
And that response has to be creative because it has to be from our context. It has to be from our person.
That's right.
For the time that is needed, right? And then I think it is part of the glory of God's love that God delights in the creativity of the response. God doesn't already have the script and is wondering, can you guess what the script that I have? That God is saying, I have shown you this great love, and now what will you do in reply? And so I think to let to act in these creative ways with the knowledge that God is making them possible and delighting in them.
That's right.
And then they become a kind of worship.
Yeah. Thank you very much for this kind of conversation. I believe it's a kind of starting point. So whenever we have a lot of chances to invite some kind of speaker like you, I believe the kind of the theology education is going to change in terms of communication. I believe this kind of conversation can be more applicable to all people kind of in need of new voices, new imaginations. And anyhow, thank you very much for sharing your brilliant ideas with us.
Thank you, Professor Lim. It's been my honor.